Hello, this is Jeff again. I am at Splat Space this time, and I'm going to do an update on the banjo project. I said before that it was not the sort of rebuild that was practical in any sense, just because the sheer amount of work that had to be done and the terrible condition of what remained of the instrument, but it was the kind of job I found interesting, so I'm doing it anyway. So it's been quite a while. I've done a lot of work, and I'm nearing the end. So this is going to be an update on everything that's happened so far. So a word about my approach to this. I wanted to retain as much material from the original build as possible. Recondition it if I could, use it if I could. Beyond that, I wanted to use recycled, repurposed pieces and materials as much as I could, and make as much of it as I possibly could. I got interested in banjos by reading the old Foxfire books, and it was described, the traditional Appalachian banjo makers, and interviewed many of them, and that was a lot of the attitude, the classic use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without philosophy. So I'm trying as much as possible to do that. I have purchased some pieces because I just don't have time to do everything, but I'm using and reusing everything I can. So let's start with the neck. Down here at the bottom is the original stiffening rod for the pot, or the brace rod for the pot. It's not really a truss rod, it ends right here at this plug. So that was long enough. It was severely rusted to the bolt, or to the nut, so I had to cut the nut off, made a couple slits with a Dremel and then cracked it off. There is enough of this remaining after I cleaned it up to go all the way through the pot and securely bolt on with the anchor piece for the tailpiece. This is the original anchor. So that should work. If I run into problems with it, I can always cut the rod in the middle and piece it together with a threaded rod connector. There is, of course, a wooden brace that was around this that was severely bent. I steam bent that back into shape. I just don't have it here because it didn't fit in the parts box. But I steam bent that by putting it in over an electric skillet for about 10 minutes, and then I just braced it with wood and counter bent it and left it until it cooled and dried out, and now it's acceptably straight. So moving up here, there were cracks, gouges or scars here and here. I filled those in with a mixture of epoxy and silver pigment dust. Likewise, the 3 fret markers at, 5, 7, and 9, I did the same thing to them. The screw that is traditionally used as the nut for the 5th tuner, someone sort of added a longer one that kind of partially came out the back. I filed that flat. I think the nut should be at the right height to hold it straight, and then it'll go over that fret, and that of course is the beginning of the 5th string. That should be okay. If not, I'll have to figure out how to drill or back this out and replace it. But I haven't gotten there yet. The 5th string tuner hole ran all the way through the neck. So I took a plug cutter bit and cut a plug of walnut and cemented it in, sealed the cracks inside with a mixture of walnut dust and cyanoacrylate, and then sanded the entire thing down. Drilled deep enough for the new 5th tuner that I purchased from Stuart McDonald. It's geared, so it's not just a twist peg. And then tapered that hole and then press fit the 5th tuner into the hole. Hopefully it is secure. It looks secure. I hope it holds. If not, I'll have to probably machine out a little bit there so that I'll be able to press it in further, because it's just got a little bit of a bevel there. The entire length of the neck, of course, except for these 3 missing frets at the bottom, I scavenged some frets off of a pretty bad junky guitar I got at the scrap exchange, and didn't have quite enough, so these 3 bottom frets I can replace at some future point, or I can just leave them that way. I've dressed the edges. I think a couple of them need to be dressed just a little more so they're more comfortable. This nut is actually, I fabricated this nut blank. It's too high right now because I haven't put strings on it, and I'll be having to lower it and figure out how high the action is. This is actually a piece of what I think was a cow femur or cow tibia. Found it at a thrift store, cut the cortical bone down to size, which stinks a lot, and then I filed it to fit the slot, pressed it into place. So I'll be lowering that down once I find the correct height. The 4 tuner holes were very badly worn. There was 1 tuner left on the banjo, but it was completely shot. I really couldn't do anything with it. So off that same sort of disreputable guitar, which was in really bad shape, I harvested these 4 acoustic tuners. Actually, of course, they were in strips of 3 and 3, but I cut them apart and made fit. The holes I filled with walnut plugs again, glued them in place, sealed all the cracks with walnut dust and cyanoacrylate, sanded the whole thing down. So, and then screwed these in place. So they should work just fine. They are also geared, of course. And then underneath, in all this sanding, it seems like the wood is not this dark originally. It's like pecan or something, some hardwood like that. And so I just started rubbing on some stain just to take it back to its original sort of dark color. So that's the neck half. The pot, of course, is steel and appears to have been handmade. There's a lot of little drill and saw marks for cutting the holes and so forth. Or maybe it was, I don't know, it almost looks like a bunt pan or a springform pan, but it's not because it doesn't have that opening in it. I sanded it down, derusted it, sealed it, painted it. There were, I believe, 7 original anchors on here, and I retained all the ones I could. 2 of them, of course, are these oddball hex-shaped anchors, and then the others are the sort of oval-shaped, curved ones. I ordered the remaining ones I needed from Stuart McDonald. I had just a couple of the hooks that could actually be used. I derusted those, and I'm going to use those. The rest of the tension hooks and nuts for the tension hooks, again, I ordered from Stuart McDonald. Likewise, the tailpiece was so rusted out that I could not use it. It could not hold strings anymore. So I ordered this, where's the anchor for it? This non-adjustable tailpiece from Stuart McDonald that will just pull right down onto the top of the head like that, and then of course go up to the bridge. The anchor for it was very rusty, but underneath it was completely solid, so I'll still be using this anchor, which of course goes onto the end of this against the pot before you put the nut on. If any of these hooks do not work, I have resolved that I will make any more hooks that I need, or any more tension hook screws that I need, because I can certainly cut and thread them. I also got a bridge because I've never made a banjo bridge before, and it's got a little bit of a taper to it. I sort of understand how it works now. So if this isn't the right height from my measurements, if they were wrong, I will either cut this down or I'll just make a new one. So inside the pot is this wood liner, and it was buckled. I steam bent that back into shape, of course, and then clamped it. It has the original shim here that pressed it out to the rim. So that is ready to go. The only thing that remains to do is create a head for it. So I have decided, since I have reheaded drums with radiographs, this is actually a coworker's MRI from 2003. Since drums can be headed with radiographs, it's 10 mil Mylar, I'm going to try to do it to this banjo. There's a lot of difficulty in a human without machinery trying to do this. When Mylar is used for banjo heads commercially, they have the ring, which when it's skin, it's called a flesh ring. I don't know what you call it, the head ring, if you're not using skin. And they flip it all and press it here in an automatic operation. Mylar is very unforgiving. It doesn't stretch. It does not fold very easily. If you cut it and get enough force on the cut, you can actually rip it, but if it's just a straight edge with no cut into it, it's very, very strong. So I've failed about 3 times just fooling around with other pieces of the radiographs to see how I could do it. I think I figured it out. So I'm going to be doing that in the next video, step by step, putting the Mylar onto the ring in what is hopefully an organized and not bulky fashion, so it'll be balanced and I can get it onto the pot, put the tension ring on it. This is the original tension ring, which I hope is going to stand up. It is old. And then put the rings on and draw the entire thing down tight. And of course I'll be able to put the neck onto the pot with the brace rod and then string it up and see what happens. So I will be back with that video about the head, but till then, that is what I have done so far. I am nearing the end of this probably completely pointless rebuild. So that's all.